I need more coffee.
Are you alright?
Fine.
After the major success of Awaken My Love, fans were excited to see what Donald Glover would come up with next. His album took the world by storm with its nostalgic, funkadelic-influenced sounds and entrancing vocals. So it took the world by surprise when Glover actually announced that his musical career, Childish Gambino, would come to an end after one more project, the final chapter in his musical saga. There were high hopes for his last album. He only really had himself to compete with Awaken My Love. Could Glover really reach the same success as before? He then quietly released his album, 3/15/20, with as little to no promotion as possible, other than a mysterious looping stream of his album on a website. Otherwise, no music videos, no traditional titles, no interviews, nothing. There was hardly any talk surrounding it from both him and the internet as before. Is this really how he wanted to end his musical journey as Childish Gambino? Why did he want to end it all? To understand the end, we must understand his struggles, his hardships, and his philosophies. This is the end of Childish Gambino. Glover has gone from writer, comedian, actor, to musician, and much more. He's played in major blockbusters such as the charismatic Lando in the new Star Wars movie, Solo, and the iconic Simba in the remake of The Lion King, opposite Beyoncé. He made a Grammy Award-winning album and is producing the hit TV show Atlanta. Glover has done it all, and he recognizes it. When entering all these different industries, Glover had to prove he could do it. Although he was widely known for a hit role in Community, when he wanted to transition into the music industry, he had a lot of work to do. While working on Community, Glover was already working on his transition into music, meeting the show's score composer, Ludwig Göransson, his eventual collaborator on Awaken My Love. While Glover's first few musical releases were welcomed, he continued to bury himself in his work, determined to become the artist he wanted to be, collaborating with other artists such as Chance the Rapper, 21 Savage, Kodak Black, and more. A major theme found throughout his career is his struggle with his identity. From the very beginning, Glover never wanted to be known for just one thing. He always wanted to follow and explore his curiosity. His first expression of struggling with his identity can be found in an Instagram post he made when leaving Community. He would continue struggling with these fears into the music industry, not knowing who he was or what his place was. Contrary to popular belief, Glover left the show to explore his curiosity and identity as he began reflecting upon his place in the world, not because he just wanted to pursue rap. Eventually, Glover would be able to prove himself in the music industry, with the releases of Because the Internet, Awaken My Love, and This Is America. Once he had it all, once he had control over the things he could, he then had to face the reality of things that were not, from relationships, death, and society. Glover revealed his father had passed away during the production of The Lion King. His father was a major influence in Glover's life, as he was the one that allowed Glover to watch The Simpsons and to skip school to see a Star Wars movie, as he wasn't allowed, being raised a Jehovah's Witness. When diving into the source code of DonaldGloverPresents.com, a hidden image can be found of a note written by Glover. The message mentioned his father, his child, his love, and his fans. The message was also about his fears and concerns. The writing expresses his emotions and how he's shedding away the persona of Childish Gambino by completely accepting and being himself, Donald Glover. Upon his confrontation of his father's death, this was a moment of reflection for Glover, that despite his best efforts and triumphs, there will always be things he cannot change. Death is eventual. He had this realization far earlier in his career upon the fact that he was eventually in life as a black man. However, as he progressed in his career, Glover would be able to cease struggling with his own identity and value, as he has chosen to accept who he is for himself, and to further do so by shedding away from the spotlight. He was able to obtain all levels and access to materialism we often desire. Yet Glover was able to humble himself by understanding that materialism and the pursuit of things out of our control ultimately do not matter. Glover's decision to leave behind the Childish Gambino name is his acceptance and release of the tireless pursuit of success and other forms of materialism he so sought for early in his career. To further prove Glover's stoicism, he has stated he does not fear death itself, something inevitable.
I don't think, people really scared of death. I am not afraid of that shit. That's part of life. That's part of everything.
Rather than to go out somehow to control the inevitability, he's accepted that death is vengeful for everyone. His fears of not doing enough with his life had become stronger than before. But instead of being fears, they were now determinations. He was no longer being controlled by it. Rather, he was now in control of them. Rather than wasting his time and energy on the inevitable, such as death, Glover decides to focus his attention on the things that he can. His family and legacy. Glover is not able to control the way the media perceives and portrays his family. However, he is able to instead control whether or not his family is shown in the media at all, such as keeping his children and partner out of the spotlight as much as possible. An example of Glover focusing on his legacy, something he is able to control, are his efforts to display the horrors of society through creative and artistic outlets. His first artistic expression on society came in the form of This Is America, where he reflects upon the current state of the country, from corruption, discrimination, and violence. In the music video, we can see weapons being handled with care, but people with disrespect, much like they are in the country. The music video itself is a great reflection upon the state of America, with entertaining dances to distract us from the horrors occurring in the background, as an example of media and society praising black culture but not sympathizing with the discrimination that they face. This can also be seen in the guitars that was shot in the beginning, being brought back from the dead just for entertainment. The violence is literally out of focus in both the music video and media as a whole. With every death in the video, you can notice the beat loudening, alluding to the fact how people try to distract themselves from the tragedies by overwhelming and deafening themselves with noise.
This is America. Black man. This is America.
This is America, a white manufactured warehouse run by chaos. His second expression of society comes from the movie Guava Island, where it takes a stance upon suppression, capitalism, and more corruption of which people experience as a whole. The entire island of which the movie takes place is run by Red, a singular powerful man who controls the people of the island by employing them under strict conditions, punishing those who do not contribute to his company. Glover's character is a musician who reminds the people of the paradise they live in through his music.
Sada, what's wrong with you?
What's wrong with me is that we live in paradise, but none of us have the time or the means to actually live here.
In the end, we can see that the death of Glover's character was not meaningless, as it brought the people together in celebration of who they are and what they are, rather than to let the powerful control them. This demonstrates how we the people have the power to overcome suppression if we come together. Yet we don't, as we fear the authority and rely on them, not realizing how we are being cheated and scammed. From Guava Island, it contains songs that would eventually be on his final album, where lastly, Glover's most recent expression of society comes from his final album and his musical saga as Childish Gambino, 3:15:20. Perhaps his deepest and most vulnerable form of expression yet, as he puts all his emotions and concerns of the future out for us to hear. In his final project, he makes a final plea to his listeners with the turmoil of which the world is going through. Our disconnect from the world as we grow addicted to our technology and media, being caught in a loop and an algorithm. Much more. Glover surrenders control on 3:15:20, refusing to traditionally title his album and individual tracks. They are instead titled to their placement in time on the album. As a nod to the idea of being caught in an algorithm or loop, the album itself steadily loops itself as well. From the ending of 5349, or Under the Sun, back to the beginning of 0.00, We Are, by just a simple tone. However, not only is 3:15:20 his reflection on the state of the world, but it is also a reflection on the state of his life. He's a father now, and his family is of highest importance to him. The world is changing, his career is changing, but his life is changing too. When analyzing his position in life, it is interesting to view the album as he is no longer referring to himself as Childish Gambino. Throughout all platforms that are promoting the album, there is a lack of mentions to his previous identity. The only real sign of it comes from the fact that the album is released under the Childish Gambino name. But for the most part, it is overwhelmed by his true identity, Donald Glover. What we get instead is Donald Glover Presents, his name in colorful, vibrant colors, with the album being initially released and looped on DonaldGloverPresents.com. He's no longer playing the alias of Childish Gambino. He has accepted who and what he is. He is simply himself, Donald Glover. Releasing the album under his Childish Gambino name while promoting himself as Donald Glover Presents is a subtle representation of the transition in not just his career, but in his life as a whole. Similarly to the seamless transitions between tracks on the album. The transitions between his identity from Childish Gambino to Donald Glover are represented by the tracks, as they are not to be seen as individual tracks separated from each other, but rather as a collective whole, a continuation. There is a specific momentum carried throughout the album that can only be appreciated and realized when listening through the entire album from start to finish. He's no longer struggling with his identity and position, not just in the music industry as he did as Childish Gambino, but in society and the world as a whole. We can see in the last two tracks that Glover is now accepting It's not completely clear whether or not Glover will continue making music. He is retiring the Childish Gambino name for sure, but that doesn't mean he can't continue making music as just Donald Glover. Donald Glover has made a great name for himself as a writer, comedian, actor, and musician. However, his efforts in doing so go greatly unnoticed and unappreciated. While much of his motivations are carried by his eventual death, he does not fear it. Rather, he accepts it and decides to be in the pursuit of grander things he can control, such as his family, legacy, and the message he leaves behind. While his messages are not always understood, for those who do, can greatly appreciate and immerse themselves in the philosophies and meaning behind it, opening themselves to the world Glover perceives it to be. It is truly remarkable witnessing the stoic mindset and journey of Glover with the hurdles and odds he has overcome, as well as the vast number of triumphs and successes he is able to claim. He has a strong belief in endings. While this may be the end of Childish Gambino, it is far from being the end of Donald Glover.